Welcome back to another episode of the Trademark Sports Podcast. We're heading into round 3 and things are starting to shape up in the NRL. We've got the Raiders looking seemingly like the team to beat. Manly red hot and on form. You've got other clubs. The Bulldogs seemingly looking to have some teething issues there, as I always said they would. And even the Dragons. They've shown their ceiling and they've shown their floor after 2 rounds of rugby league. So it's all sort of shaping up. The season is super exciting. And if you're excited for another episode of the Trademark Sports Podcast and you're new around here, why not subscribe to the YouTube channel, drop a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, leave a like, comment, all those good things. But let's get straight into it. There's been some very interesting stories developed the last couple of days. So first one, so there was some doubts about Payne Haas playing this weekend against the Panthers. It's now come out that the injury to him is a lot more serious than I feel like the Broncos even thought. So Payne Haas is out for 4 to 6 weeks. He requires knee surgery. I'm not sure what on exactly. You have to let me know in the comments. I haven't seen really, as everyone just saying that Payne Haas is out for that period of time. But the Broncos' draw over that period is actually quite nasty. So they've got the Panthers this week, and the Cowboys, the Storm. So those 3 games are pretty huge. The Dolphins, which it's the Brisbane rivalry, that could be a big game. The Raiders, which as I said just before, look like the team to beat at the moment, and their forward pack is their big strength in their side. So that'll be a tough game for the Broncos pack. Then they got the Tigers, and then seemingly if he is out for that sort of 6-week prognosis there, that time period, then the Roosters will be his first game back, which is no mean feat, especially with their 4-pack and the depth they've got. The Roosters are a ridiculously strong squad. So it begs the question for the Broncos is how do you really, you can't replace Payne Haas. That's a ridiculous thing to even consider. Who you bring in at the starting Fletcher Baker this weekend? Got to be honest, it's not super inspiring. Just being honest. Look, Pat Carrigan's going to have to play overtime. You've also got Corey Jensen's going to have to play huge minutes. Who they bring in on the bench? Xavier Willison, I think, is the person that they're going to name instead of Payne Haas there. So yeah, there's a lot of guys there to step up, but if you're a Xavier Willison or a Ben Takura, whoever gets this opportunity to come into this team, this is your chance to show that you belong in first grade and make it hard when Payne Haas comes back to get dropped. Obviously, you're not going to keep Payne Haas out of the team. I'm not saying that, but in terms of the other backup forwards and whatnot, so it's going to be a very challenging time for the Broncos over the next couple of weeks without Payne Haas. It's a massive loss, but you'd rather lose him at this point of the season than at the end because, look, even without Payne Haas, the Broncos are still there or thereabouts. Losing Payne Haas and Adam Reynolds at the same time is super, super hurtful for that Broncos squad. They're two very important players to their team. So I'm very interested to see how they go over this next round because that next month is pretty tough draw. Speaking of Adam Reynolds and halfbacks in general, geez, it's a tough week to be a halfback in the NRL. This is the merry-go-round of halfbacks. So we've got Jackson Hastings has been dropped from the Knights. They haven't started the season fantastic. I'm not sure if Jackson Hastings is the reason why. I thought he hasn't played terrible. Honestly, I think his halves partner Tyson Gamble probably is the one out of the 2 that you'd just say hasn't started the season fantastically. Obviously, Jack Cogger, more of a 7 than a 6. Grand final last year, we saw Cogger come on and play, come on for Jerome Luai, but he played more of that 7 role. Anyway, but look, there's some things been said about this whole Jackson Hastings situation. Apparently, he's not happy, which I can't imagine you would be. But you heard some reports saying he kicked up a stink and left training or whatever. Other reports are now coming out and saying, I think it was Dean Ritchie I saw talking about, no, it was Danny Weidler. There you go. I saw talking about it, and I think anyway, and he said that Adam O'Brien said that he could go home if he wanted to, because obviously it's not nice news, not going to be in a good mood, not a great environment for the boys to be around too when you've got a player of that presence in the dressing room in not a fantastic mood. So I completely understand that. Just gives him time to go, be by himself and reflect on what's happened and see what he can do better to come back and make his way back into that side. I've got no issues with that at all, to be honest. Other halfback news. Lockie Ilias has been dropped, and this probably should have happened, honestly, 6 months ago. And I'm not saying that Lockie Ilias is a bad player by any means. I actually think he's quite a good player. There's lots of talent and potential there, but sometimes when players come into first grade, they get a taste of it, and then need to come back to reserve grade especially when they're in such an important position, hone their craft. So it's like they get that taste and they get that hunger, desire to get back there, improve their game, be better, and then come back into first grade. I think that should happen for Lockie Ilias. Obviously, Jason Demetriou is a massive Lockie Ilias fan, but I think for the longevity of his career and for his development, this is the best thing for him. Dean Hawkins comes in. He's quite a handy replacement. He's a good footballer himself. I think he's only played 5 NRL games to date so far, which I think is crazy because a lot of clubs could use a Dean Hawkins type player, which apparently there's a few clubs interested in him. So whilst it's really unfortunate for Lockie Ilias, it's a massive chance for Dean Hawkins to come in and prove himself as an NRL quality halfback. And look, if he plays good enough, he'll keep Lachlan Ilias out of that side. But again, like the Knights, the Bunnies haven't started the season great. They probably just need a little invigoration in there. Look, he's been thrown straight into the fire, having to play against the Roosters in that crosstown derby, one of the biggest rivalries in the comp, if not the biggest, maybe. Look, it could be one of the biggest, if not the biggest. Well, yeah. Anyway, the next halfback that has been ruled out for this week is Jerome Hughes. So that means that, and Amos is nowhere near returning to play. So the Storm are left with Tyron Wishart and Jonah Pezzett in the halves this weekend, which, look, they're handy replacements. They're handy footballers. Jonah Pezzett's really starting to show that he's a quality first grader and belongs at the top level. Tyron Wishart the same. The more NRL he plays, the better he gets. But they haven't played together in the halves in the NRL. I think they might have both played for the Sunshine Coast Falcons, but whether that was Wishart playing at 9, I think he does up there. But that's the thing. So we've seen Tyron Wishart play a couple of games at halfback in the NRL. Killed against the Broncos at the end of last season. But look, they got this weekend. They got the Knights. That's right. So that's a different task anyway. I think that game he killed it. Well, actually, might have been the semi-final against the really good Broncos side. But either way, it's a tough ask for 2 relatively young players, essentially rookies. So it's going to be a big step up for those guys. And the last one is Adam Reynolds is out as well. So Jock Madden comes in there. And very handy replacement. Australian schoolboy halfback. Just really sort of at the Tigers, didn't get his opportunity there. Players really developed that well at the Tigers in the last, honestly, 10 years. So it's not really his fault he didn't kick on there. The Broncos, they're he's just stuck behind Adam Reynolds. I'm not sure whether he's really knocking down the door for that 7th spot once Adam Reynolds leaves. But hey, if he plays good here, then he certainly could do that. You never know. As I said, the stacks of potential for him as a youngster. He's still around, 23, 24, so time's still on his side. Tough ask as well. Now, as we spoke about before, that Payne Haas is out too. That sucks. And now, we'll move on and talk about some things that get me really fired up. So, there's been a lot of talk in the media lately that Zach Lomax isn't happy at the Dragons, doesn't like being on the wing, wants to move. Parramatta expressed interest. I think he'd actually honestly be a great fit, as much as that hurts me to say as a Dragons fan. But Ben Hunt has come out and said some comments today that really just, frustrate me, hey. So, he's come out and said, Zach and I, we talk a bit. He's not showing that he's unhappy, but yeah, I'm aware that he does want to leave the club. He's getting around the place with energy. He's playing good footy. Is there really a need to say he doesn't want to be there? As the club captain, you should just say, look, Zach, he's focused on playing his best football, doing the best role for the team. We're focused on building and making finals, whatnot. Just those really straight up and down media type answers. Does he have to say that he wants to leave? And this is a club captain who last year said he wants to leave the club. I am honestly getting frustrated by the fact that he's still the club captain. I don't think someone with this attitude and this sort of negativity, negative connotations and whatnot should be the face of the club, because it just bleeds through. When you're meant to be, this is your leader, this is the bloke who, when times are tough, you turn to for inspiration and say, no, we can get through this and everything, but he doesn't want to be there. So times are tough and you're looking towards your inspiration. He's like, well, boys, let's pack it in and go home. They're going to do it. Yeah. I know that Shane Flanagan's obviously going to want to keep both of them at the club because they're probably our 2 best players. But hey, if they don't want to be there, piss them off. They're taking up so much cap. Try and bring someone else in. I don't know. It's just very frustrating. I'd love to keep them both, but I'd also love their attitudes to change and want to be there. If they've got no pride or respect for the jersey and the badge, then end of the day, they're not going to be playing their best football for the club. It's going to be for personal gain, and we don't really want that. It's not how you win premierships. Not the Dragons are close to that right now, but building towards the future. Anyway, enough of that negative chat. Let's get into this week's tips. So, Panthers versus the Broncos. With the amount of people that the Broncos have out this week, you've just got to go to the Panthers. In Penrith, they find a way to get it done. Warriors versus the Raiders is really tough, to be honest. Warriors didn't look great in that game against the Sharks at home. Obviously, they lost in a tight one to the Storm last week, which is a massive game. They played well against the Storm. So they're versing 3 top 8 sides to start the season. 0-2. Haven't won. I believe they're playing Christchurch. Haven't won there for ages. Raiders look red hot, really good, especially through the middle. The Raiders are really sticking it to teams. It's going to be tough. I'm going to the Warriors because they're in New Zealand, but geez, that could swing either way. And so could the next game. Friday night's games, Roosters versus Rabbitohs too. Rabbitohs, again, 0-2. Haven't started the season fantastic in any means. Dropped their halfback, all this sort of stuff. But the Roosters, they've never looked good. They've honestly been fantastic. We've had a couple big lineup, rosters changes this week as well because Luke Keary's out too. So Sanders Smith's playing halfback, another halfback, and more halves changes. Crazy. So I'm tipping the Roosters, but will the Rabbitohs really go 0-3 to start the season? That's another question. Again, could go either way. If you tip the Rabbitohs, don't blame you. Then you got Bulldogs versus the Titans. It's at Belmore. Titans looked awful against the Dragons, but look, we can see from the Dragons how much a team can change from week 1 to week 2 at the start of the season. So coming off the bye, they could be refreshed and recharged. We don't know. Look, Doggies at Belmore too. They're going to take a little while to click, the poor old Doggies. So I'm tipping the Titans there. Then we go to the Dragons versus the Cowboys. Dragons, first game in New South Wales at home. They got a pretty decent record there, but yeah, the Cowboys, they're looking good to start the season. They're back to their 2022 kind of form. They're probably going to get the job done. We've got Tigers versus Sharks. Sorry, Tigers fans. I know that you really want to, and you deserve, honestly, after all the pain, to be going well. Lockie Galvin looked good in his debut. There's obviously glimpses and it was Samuela Fainu's try. I think it was Lockie Galvin to Dream Buller to Samuela Fainu. Good signs for the future, really. But I think there's still a few tough times ahead, and the Sharks haven't, I don't know, Nico Hines didn't play his best footy first round, looked better last week, but they're still looking really good as a team, which is a really good thing for a Sharkies fan. Sharkies win that one. Then it is Para versus Manly. Again, a tough game to pick. It's a tough round to pick. You could either go 8 for 8 or 2 for 8. Para, tough game against the Panthers last week. Losing Bailey Simonson early didn't help them. And then Kelvin Tuolangi going on edge against Isaac Tager, who was in red hot form. It's a tough day. It's a tough day in the office. Simple as that. Again, the outside backs now, a couple of injuries and whatnot, look pretty depleted. Manly, red hot form. I'm going to tip Manly, to be honest. And then the last game of the round is the Knights versus Storm. And I sort of said before, talking about the Storm and the Knights. Knights are favourites, and I know the Storm have a few out, but I'm still going to tip the Storm. I don't know. There's something about the Storm, again, compared to the Knights. That's just who I'm going for. So, they're my tips for the weekend. I got Panthers, Warriors, Roosters, Titans, Cowboys, Sharks, Manly, Storm. Now, time for our questions, hey? So we got, first one is from Tom Ryan, and he says, how the hell did Luai not get any weeks off? Even a single ban? I tend to agree, hey. How do you trip someone and get away with a fine? And I believe the other one was a careless high tackle. Look, I don't know, but I'm sort of the belief a little bit, if you get cited for more than one thing in a game, you should serve a 1 week suspension anyway. Because you get cited and then you're still being careless and reckless and whatnot and putting people in harm's way. Yeah, it doesn't rub you the right way, does it? Jerome Hughes got suspended for something so minuscule, and then Jerome Luai he tripped someone. I know Mitch Moses didn't get injured, but that shouldn't matter. You can't trip someone. Tripping is just 2 to 3 weeks usually. It doesn't really sit right with me, to be honest. But yeah, I think Jerome Luai should be suspended. I think you're absolutely right in asking that question. Then we got Bryce_C_ who says, was Whiten leaving the Raiders a blessing in disguise? And it's honestly a fantastic question, and I think it might be. Just from looking the way the Raiders are playing, their attack looks a lot more fluid and flowing. I know Jack Whiten's a very run-first, ball-dominant kind of half, so that Edge didn't really see the ball that much. But I think with the Raiders, their fallback and their game plan has been tailored around that fallback, just beating teams through the middle, like really dominating that ruck and allowing Jamal Fogarty's been fantastic, but allowing Jamal Fogarty to capitalise off the back of that, kick the corners, really dominate the team in field position. I honestly think the Raiders have just been fantastic. So Jack Whiten leaving might have been a blessing in disguise. They've seemingly got heaps of room in the cap now as well, so they could land a superstar second rower or whatnot, which they've sort of been in the market for. So hey, maybe it actually was a blessing in disguise. We got Eric_Fraser saying, Dragons still top 10 contenders. Look, I don't know if they ever were, if I'm honest. Like that first week might have just been a lucky coincidence. Not a coincidence, but like just... This is a game where everything fell into place. I think in the first 2 weeks, we've seen the Dragons' ceiling of potentially top 8 side if they play like that every week against the Titans, and their floor, which we sort of saw in the trials too. Charity Shield, they were awful against the Tigers, and they were fantastic. So there might be a team where, look, the Dolphins didn't look good in the first week, but it might be a team where they finish middle of the pack because they pump all the average teams and lose to all the good teams. That kind of thing. Yeah, we'll see. Look, the signs from the Dragons last weekend is not good. Not good at all. But, look, we'll see how they go against the Cowboys. They got a couple... Well, and then they got the Manly after that too. So, a few tough games. They can come away with a 1 win from either of those 2 games. Then I think potentially they could be top 10 contenders. But for me, I still probably think their spots around the bottom 4. We got Austin Flack 06. And he says, how do you think the Sharks will go this year? And will they make the 8? I think they'll make the 8. I've always thought they're going to make the 8. A lot of people sort of wrote them off because of their finals form, but I don't think that's like their regular season form's never come into question for me. I think the Braden Trindle, Nico Hines combination is looking quite good so far. It adds an extra level to their attack and their game plan that teams haven't really adjusted to just yet. I mean, it's been 2 rounds. We'll have to see what their form's like after 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. But yeah, they look really good at the moment. I tell you what, once they get Adam Fanua-Blake in that side too, they're going to be tough to beat. Yeah, I really do like the look of the Sharkies so far. And I think potentially maybe they win a finals game this year. That'd be nice for Sharks fans. And then last question for the week is sort of talking about another team. How well do I think Manly will go this year, and how far? At the start of the year, I thought, look, they could be in trouble in terms of like, I don't know, they're just one of those teams where they've got the roster to be able to do something, but they never really seem to actually do it. But Luke Brooks looks great. They've had a couple of injuries already, and they've still turned around. Like, they looked really good against the Roosters last week. Ola Kawatu has started the season so red hot. But like, look, here's the thing. And if you listen to Bloke in a Bar, which you probably should anyway, if you like rugby league, he talks about the fact that Anthony Seibold teams like to start fast. He gets them really fit and ready to go for the start of the season. That's like what he likes to do. So sort of take it with a grain of salt at the moment with their form, because they could just be more match ready than other teams. But at the early stages of the season, really good signs. Tommy Turbo playing good football. Hopefully he stays injury free. Burbo played really good in that round 1. DCE again, just looking unbelievable. Taniela Paseka woke up and realised that he's actually a massive human being and will be really good at rugby league if he plays to his size. Yeah, look, Manly definitely they could do a 2021 and get top 4 again. Like they are very tough to beat, especially at Brookie. But again, they could be another team that they could get top 4 or bottom 4, just depending how things play out during the season. But look, there's certainly exciting signs if you're a Manly fan, rather. So that brings us to the end of another episode of the Trademark Sports Podcast. So thank you very much for listening. If you made it this far, we'll comment Luke Brooks for Dally M. If you have made it this far, and just have a good week. Enjoy the rugby league this weekend, and most importantly, just remember to Scotty drink your water and Bradman do your best.